Merhaba arkadaşlar, hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Hello friends, and welcome to all of you. I'm Sandra Sawaya, a scholar who studies mobile learning.
And I'm Doug Hartman, a scholar who studies technology integration.
We both work at Michigan State University in the US.
And because our busy schedules don't permit us to travel this weekend to be with you at Bartin University,
we sent this video instead,
so we could share some of our ideas and experiences about mobile learning.
We know that today's workshop is part of an important project called From Knowledge Technology to Brain Technology,
which is providing support for the use of mobile technologies in a number of education programs.
So we want to voice a big thank you to Secular to those who support this project.
The West Black Sea Development Agency, Bartin University, especially Dean Güneş and her colleagues, and the Turkish Republic of Ministry of Development. Thank you.
Because we have just a few minutes to talk with you, we'll focus our presentation today on 3 key questions.
First, what is mobile learning? Second, what are key considerations for designing effective mobile learning activities? And 3, what are the best practices for implementing mobile learning at both school-wide and classroom levels?
To answer these questions, we'll draw upon current thinking and research in North America and Europe,
with the full realization that the practical use of these ideas will come from thoughtful consideration of their relevance to your goals and situation.
Let's begin with the first question, which seems like a simple and straightforward question. What is mobile learning? When most people think of mobile learning, they think about digital technologies like the smartphone.
But mobile learning and mobile technologies have a long history, much longer than the smartphone, and even longer than our lifetime.
In fact, the earliest known uses of mobile technology for learning occurred here in Turkey and other countries in the region.
About 4,000 years ago, cuneiform tablets, pictured on the left, were considered high-tech tools for teaching, learning, communicating, and carrying out the work of business, government, and religion.
And as you know, Turkey was, and still is, situated at the crossroads of the world for education, communication, commerce, politics, and religion. So these mobile tablets have been found in many Turkish archaeological sites, as pictured here on the right.
These little handheld pancakes of clay with symbols pressed into them by a stick or stylus were the first mobile learning devices.
And as the definition of mobile learning that was associated with these mobile tablets 4 centuries ago was a simple one. Portable information, portable facts, a single piece of information that can be easily carried around.
In many ways, the mobile technologies pictured here, over 4,000 years apart in time, both made and make mobile learning possible because they share similar features.
They are both handheld, so they are both portable. They are intuitive, so they're easy to use. They're ubiquitous, so nearly everyone has one. They are both tools used for communication, so they are great at helping people share information with one another. They are both personalized, so individuals can customize what appears on their mobile device.
But today's mobile technologies, like those pictured here, have many more features and affordances for mobile learning.
And therefore require a definition of mobile technology and mobile learning that is more up-to-date than the one at work when cuneiform tablets were first used 4,000 years ago.
To understand what the label mobile learning means today, we need to take a few minutes and unpack the label mobile learning. Let's first take a look at the word mobile and what it means in today's context.
Today's digital devices have pushed us to think about mobility in ways that are more complex and nuanced. So let's start with a common, everyday understanding of mobility. The moving of a person and their digital device between 2 or more physical locations, which is referred to as physical mobility. In terms of mobile learning, physical mobility means having your digital device with you as you move from one place to another. However, today's meaning of mobility is more complex than mere physical mobility. It can also mean mobility in our thinking, where we shift our focus, attention, and thoughts between different topics, activities, goals, apps, devices, and more. This type of shifting is known as cognitive mobility. Have you ever started reading an article on Wikipedia and found yourself clicking through the hyperlinked words to other web images, web pages, and articles? This happens to me all the time. In terms of mobile learning, cognitive mobility means shifting your thinking as you move among apps, devices, tasks, and information when moving from one place to another. Today's meaning of mobility is even more complex than physical and cognitive mobility alone. It can also mean mobility in our social circles, where we shift back and forth from social interactions that are physically face-to-face, in classrooms for example, to those that are virtually remote, such as when followers track you on Twitter. This type of shifting is known as social mobility. Digitally, mobile devices can easily permit you to socially interact with others around the world, making this type of mobility very easy. In terms of mobile learning, social mobility means seamlessly shifting the social relations of learning from face-to-face to virtual, back to face-to-face to virtual again, and so on, while at the same time moving from one place to another and shifting our focus, our attention, our thoughts between different topics, activities, goals, apps, and devices. There are other ways in which today's digital devices have pushed us to think about mobility in ways that are more complex and nuanced, but these three serve to illustrate how physical, cognitive, and social mobility provide an expanded lens for looking at what the word mobile and mobile learning means in North American and European contexts.
Sandra has closely examined how the meaning of mobility is evolving. But what's happened to the meaning of learning? Is learning itself being transformed too by the introduction of mobile devices? The short answer, is yes. Learning is being changed and will continue to evolve as time passes. And why? Because learning is closely linked to the technologies that are embedded in teacher-student activity. And how is this so? Imagine for a moment that a student has a pencil in her hand. As a technological device, this pencil both permits and limits the learning that she can do. It permits her to write in a way that a stick or a finger cannot do, but the pencil also limits her from writing in ways that other technologies can do, such as writing with a typewriter, writing with a computer, a smartphone, or a blog. Thus, to a large extent, the pencil as a technology defines the boundaries or limits of learning that she can do. Similarly, the many technologies embedded in our lives today permit and limit the type of learning that we can do. For instance, if a teacher uses approved textbooks, mandated curriculum, scripted methods, paper handouts, desks that are fixed to the floor in rows, classrooms of a certain size during specific hours of the day, and assesses with formal tests, then he and his students are bounded by the limits that these technologies place on the learning that can occur. But if the teacher can choose any textbook, decide on any curriculum, select his methods, use paper slates and whiteboards, move portable desks around, teach in the school building and out in the community for a broader range of day and evening hours, and assess students with a broad range of evidence, then the learning that his students can do is defined by other limits, by limits that these particular technologies place on the learning that can occur. So what if mobile technologies are inserted into teacher-student activity? What does this new type of technology permit and limit? In other words, what do these devices do to learning? Not surprisingly, it turns out that mobile digital devices do a number of things to learning. They move learning in the direction that is more spontaneous. That is, it's more natural and unrehearsed. It also moves it in the direction of being more intimate, that is, more friendly and warm. They move it to be more situated, that is, more about now than then. And they move it to be more connected, that is, more logical and related to experience. They move it to be more informal, that is, more relaxed and easygoing. And they move it to be more personal, that is, more personalized and tailored. As well as they move it to be more opportunistic, that is, more strategic and astute. And they move it to be more pervasive, that is, more widespread and permeating. And they move it to be more private, that is, more personal and independent. And they move it to be more context aware, that is, mindful of place and situated learning. They also move it to be more bite-sized, using small units of learning and teaching. They move it to be more portable, that is, more convenient and handy, and also to be more seamless, that is, more coherent and uninterrupted. They also move it to be more social, meaning more collective and public-minded. It moves it to be more collaborative, where there's sharing and synergies. And they move it to be more authentic, that is, genuine and legitimate. So there's a whole lot more that can be said about what learning is, but for the purposes of this presentation, we'll stop here. To summarize, when mobile learning technologies are embedded in teacher-student activity, they shape learning in ways that other technologies can't do at all, or at least do as well. In other words, learning with mobile devices is less limited and more available.
We've discussed what mobility means, and then what learning has come to mean. Now let's take a step back and answer the question we posed a couple of minutes ago. What is mobile learning? Thanks to the portability of mobile devices, mobile learning can take place anywhere and at any time. When every student has a mobile device, then learning becomes personalized and private. Students who own mobile devices can customize them by installing apps that are important, interesting, and relevant to their purposes. Mobile learning is also contextual. It can take place in several physical locations, museums, parks, and social settings, such as with friends, with classmates. Mobile learning can be formal, academic, planned, if it occurs because of teacher-led activities. And mobile learning can be informal, recreational, spontaneous, if it occurs because you are interested or curious about something. We've started to paint a picture of what mobile learning is, and honestly, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. But if we had to give you the big picture of what mobile learning is, then it simply is learning across multiple contexts through social and content interactions using personal electronic devices. For now, we think that this statement sufficiently answers the question of what is mobile learning. For the most part, mobile learning isn't as simple as asking students to open up an app and then interact with it for 20 minutes. To be sure, the mere opening and interacting with an app could lead to limited types of learning, like when a student opens and interacts with a math app designed for practicing computational skills. But mobile learning can and should be used for more than drill and practice, and much more than reading ebooks or viewing video clips. The full potential of mobile learning is realized when a certain type of mindset or habit of mind is at work in the planning and implementing of student learning. We'll begin briefly describing the mindset that many think is the most effective habit of mind for fully realizing the potential of mobile learning, and then talk about each aspect of the mindset in more detail. So first, the mindset is known by the acronym TPACK. It stands for Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge. We'll call it TPACK for short. As a mindset, TPACK prompts planners and implementers of mobile learning to consider three things when designing activities. First, TPAC considers the content students are to learn, in other words, the content learning goals of the activity. The question to first consider when it comes to content learning goals is, what will students learn? Next, TPAC prompts you to consider the pedagogical approach of the learning activity itself. The question to consider when it comes to a pedagogical approach is, what approach will best help students learn? And finally, TPAC prompts you to consider the technological affordances of mobile devices and apps, so the possibilities for a device or app is the best fit for the design of the learning activities. The question to consider when it comes to technological affordances is, which technology will best help students learn? That's our brief description of TPAC. For learning activities to be successful, these three domains need to be aligned with one another. More on that later. Now, let's look more closely at each of these considerations. As you'll recall, the first consideration focuses on content learning goals. When designing learning activities, whether they use mobile devices or not, the first thought should always be about the content learning goals. What is it that students are to learn? In other words, what are the content learning goals of the activity? There are two types of learning goals. One type is focused on subject matter knowledge, and the other type of learning goal has to do with procedural knowledge. Subject matter knowledge is concerned with the concepts and facts learned in science, math, history, and other subject areas of the curriculum. For example, if students are learning things like the basic molecular steps in photosynthesis from an interactive applet, or the Pythagorean theorem from an online video tutorial, or the date that modern Turkey became a republic from an online encyclopedia, then they are focused on a subject matter learning goal. These types of goals are outlined by educational agencies and ministries in most countries. In the US, for instance, the subject matter learning goals are specified in standard documents such as the Common Core State Standards for literacy and mathematics, the Next Generation Standards for science, and a handful of other standards documents for each of the remaining subject matter areas. In Turkey, our understanding is that the Ministry of Education specifies the subject matter learning goals for schools throughout the country. The other type of content learning goal, procedural knowledge, refers to the approach one takes for thinking about concepts and facts that are characteristic of science, math, history, or other subject areas of the curriculum. If students learn to make, to recite, to use, to explore, to name, to criticize, to calculate, to find, to interpret, in science or in mathematics or in literature, then they are focused on a procedural-oriented content learning goal.
If you'd like to include us further in your conversation about mobile learning, you can reach us by email. Sandra's email is on the screen, as well as mine. From the campus of Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan,
I'm Sandra Sawaya.
and I'm Doug Hartman. We both wish you a productive meeting in Bartin.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.